Hi, so I'm going to put together a little video today to try to show you my technique for how I foundation paper piece, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I'm here in the studio and I'm going to flip the camera around. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's a little around the area of my workstation that I have set up. I've got all this space now, which is really nice. It's basically like two of these IKEA tables. They're the smaller ones. It's probably about like a 4-foot table side by side. And then I've got my design wall behind me. And these are the pieces I already have done. I already have 1, 3, 4, and 6 completed. The one I'm going to use to show you goes right here. It's piece number 2. And so over here I've got my fabric that is, this one is background 9. So that's my background 9, and then this is my star fabric. And then over here, my glasses, because I'm blind without them. I've got my cutting mat. This one I love, this Omnigrid Spinny, because it's got the little finger holds. And then I've got my seam roller, my rotary cutter, a pair of little nippers, my tape, and my add-a-quarter ruler is sitting underneath here. Okay, let's get started. All right, so what you see here is template number 2 from the Unicorn or Horse Abstractions quilt pattern. Excuse me. What I want to take a look at on here is, first of all, do you see how I've just rough cut them around the outside edges and left some extra room? You don't have to trim them down to this dotted line. You can if you want to. I prefer to leave a little bit of extra here all the way around, so that when I go, after the fabric's already pieced on, then I go and trim them off, and it trims these edges and the fabric at the same time. When we're looking at this template, a couple of things to notice. This pattern is in number order, so every template has a number, and then within that template it's in letter order. So to A would be the first piece of fabric that we apply, B is going to be the second piece that we're going to apply, and then C will be the third. Now another thing to look at is what's in these background places. This right here, B9, that shows us that it's background number 9, and in this particular pattern, here's my chart, we would look and see background number 9 is haystack in acid lime, and then the other one is the stars, and there's the little stars, Essex metallic crystal. For the kit that I'm using, this is this yellow from my Palm Canyon collection, and then I am using Kona white for my stars this time to go into these spots. So I'm going to move all this aside. And what we're going to look at is what is the very first piece of fabric that I need to put onto this template, okay? The very first piece is A, right here. So for A, that is my stars, which is this white fabric. I need it to be big enough that it's going to cover that area, plus a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so this piece is plenty big. I personally like to use this tape. Let me get real close for you. It's Duck brand Easy Stick tape. It says permanent. I'll tell you, all of the scrapbooking tapes that say permanent are much more permanent than this tape, and that is why I do not use those tapes. I like this one because it sticks just well enough for the fabric to stick onto this template, but where it will come off eventually. And I'm just going to go and put a little bit on the back. Woo. See if we can put the angle to where you can see it. See it kind of shiny there? So that it's just over that little section of where 2A is at. And so that it's not in my seam allowances, if at all possible. You kind of want to stay out of there because you don't want to sew over it. You can, but you don't really want to. And so then we're just going to put this piece of fabric that is way too big up into that section. Okay, so piece A is done. That's it, you're done. So piece B, the next piece we need to put on, is this big piece right here, B9, which is our yellow, and then the line that you're going to sew in between these two pieces, where these pieces will attach together, is right here. So we're going to fold back on that line. So if you have the add-a-quarter plus, it's got this like thinner edge on the side of it. Can you see that? And I'm going to lay it right on that line, and I'm going to fold. Okay, so let's notice something here. 2A is done. The piece of fabric that goes with it is attached to the back. When I'm folding this over, I'm keeping those together and I'm only folding over the template, nothing else, just folding the template, and I'm going to leave this laying on my mat. Now we're going to use the other side of the add a quarter that has this little lip on it, and that lip is going to sit right on the fabric like that. And we're going to go ahead and trim that seam allowance off. And we'll take this piece of fabric and put it back over in our scraps. Okay, so now we're prepared to add on our next piece of fabric, and this is just like any other piecing. You are still going to sew 2 seams together and your fabrics will still be right sides together. So I'm going to take a nice big piece of fabric. Here's one that I cut off. I just cut random scrap that's nice and big off, and I'm going to lay this on my mat. And I'm going to put these right sides together, okay? This is, I know it's a solid, so you can't tell, but this would be the print side of the fabric facing out, and you're going to put it down on here, someplace that this part of the template fits, okay? I'll show you why in a minute. So anywhere, like it would have fit there, that's great. It will also fit right here. And let's open it again so you see. This is the piece that we're trying to fill. Right? So when it's folded over, right sides together with your fabric, you're finding a place that this piece of paper fits inside of this piece of fabric. All right? And once we've found that spot, what do we know about quilting, about all quilting, is that seam allowances should match up and we're going to sew them together. So we're going to put our ruler back on here and we're going to trim off the seam allowance of our new fabric so that they match. And now we are ready to sew. I'm going to slide it over to my machine carefully. I just let that slip, so let me grab it again. Carefully, carefully. Slide it over under my machine. Once you're here, notice how I never picked this up, okay? When people start picking it up and holding it in the air and flipping it around, that is when things get confusing. Leave it on your mat, take it over to your machine, and you're gonna, holding these down here together, open up your template, slide it under your foot if you need to, okay? And this is the line that we're gonna sew to attach these 2 pieces together. I am about 1/2 inch outside of that line. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way through it, and I'm going to go through my seam allowance and out the other side. Okay, this is where we hope my machine was threaded. Yeah. So we've sewn, and now when we open it up and fold it over, I'm going to give it a nice little pull back so that it's open and roll it out. Little string off there. Flip it over. We've covered everything that we needed to cover all the way around. This, I like to use this tape again. Like, this is a big kind of floppy piece here. So I'll take this tape and I'll put it out here on the template as well. Make sure everything's smoothed out. And that'll help hold it in place. Now this tape, I want to show you, it comes off really easily. See that? But it sticks to the paper. It doesn't stay with the fabric. And when you roll it, you have to roll it onto the paper. So nice and smooth. Okay? Piece B is done. So next we're going to move on to piece C. I've got my ruler. If you don't have a ruler, any piece of cardboard, bookmarks, paint chips, your pattern cover, we can put that on there, right on the line. This is what everyone used. They just used a bookmark before we had these fancy add a quarter plus rulers to fold it over and to give it a good crease there. And now I'll take my add a quarter plus and trim that right off. Okay, so it's ready for C, which is stars, which is white fabric. Here I've got a piece. This one's really big. And I'm just gonna lay that on. If this was a printed fabric, it would be right side up right now, so that we are right sides together. And if you, like before, the place that I put it, I had to cut my line. But if you have an available edge that's already there, like it's already lined up and straight, you can line it up. But see this corner? Like if I were to put this over here and line these edges up, this corner would be off the edge of this fabric. And then when they both flip out, it wouldn't cover. So you have to make sure and watch that corner. I'm gonna go a little further just to make sure. All the way over here. Okay, so here's the template that we're trying to cover. Here's the fabric, nice and big all the way around. And this is ready to sew. I'm gonna slide it over, open her up. And go. If you want to back tack out here, you can. It doesn't hurt anything. And I will say I do often like to back tack when I'm in these seam allowance areas with the dotted lines. I don't ever back stitch up in here because you're just gonna cut it off anyway. But down in here, since you'll be cutting this edge off and it'll be a while before you put two templates together, sometimes I like to back tack that just to make it a little sturdier. So now we're going to fold it out and give it a good roll. Go. And that template is all stitched. And now I'll just trim it down. And I prefer to use a regular ruler and not my add-a-quarter to do the trimming. The only reason to not use a regular ruler is to save space in your work area, because you know you do end up with a lot of tools around here. But I think it's easier to see to get it a little more precise. So I like to have that ruler. La, 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 la. And no, I don't normally have my cutting mat on top of my table, but it works really well to demo. I usually have it down over here to the left side of my table. And the last edge. Okay. And there is our finished template, all ready to go. Now that we have this piece completed, we can take it over to our wall, and what we need to look at, the back. And the letters on the back should all be right side up, right side up, right side up, right side up to find its spot using the map inside of your pattern. Stick a pin in there just in case. And you can kind of start to see it coming together.